Hello and welcome to this special session for the Festival of Discovery organised by the Eden Project. My name's Kevin Carhill. I'm the former Chief Executive of Comic Relief, and it's my pleasure today to be talking to John Bishop, comedian, writer, presenter, human being extraordinaire, charity campaigner, hello, John.
Hello, Kevin. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for doing this session. My first question for you really is, what's it like, as this is a festival of discovery, you've gone back on the road and you're on tour now. I mean, have you discovered anything new about audiences, about performance, about doing stand-up post-lockdown?
Discovery always is a word that's associated with finding something new. But sometimes I think what you discover is what you didn't see last time. And so for me, going back on the road, what I've discovered is the love of being on the stage. You know, you become used to it. I've done now, I guess, how many? I couldn't even guess how many gigs I've done over the last 10 to 15 years. And you get kind of used to the pattern of a gig. You get used to the fact that you're building up to say something that will make people laugh. And then all of a sudden, when that gets taken away, the one thing that I've discovered is the sound of human beings laughing together in the same room is as joyful as the bird song in the morning. It's a real life affirming noise, and it feels like I'm discovering it for the first time.
And do you think, just on that note, do you think the audiences are just happy to be out and in the theatre and watching someone whose work they really love? I mean, do you get the same vibe off the audience?
Oh yeah, there's a sense of relief, but there's also a little bit, particularly for the first few gigs that I was doing in September. You know, even now that we're entering, October, November, December, where people have been used to being out for a bit, you've got to remember, if you Freedom Day, whatever you want to phrase you put on it, was July. So for a lot of people, when they're in a room with, 1,000 people or 1,500 people or 2,000 people, it's the biggest crowd they've been in for almost 2 years. And so in some respects, it feels like we're all doing something naughty, and like I've been saying in the gigs, it's like we all feel like we're doing something naughty, and it's probably how dogging began, because people just suddenly got together and went, "Oh, we've been a little bit naughty. Let's be very naughty while we're here." I'm not saying that's how the gigs end. They're not that much fun. But what's happening is there's an atmosphere of like collectivism. There's an atmosphere of, wow, we're all in the same room at the same time, and we're kind of finding our community again, and that's a very powerful feeling.
That sounds fantastic. Is it? I mean, in terms of what you're doing, the stand-up, is it all new material? Is that?
Yeah, this would have been what would have happened under normal circumstances is I start my tour and I do it in little venues like rooms above pubs. Then I move, graduate to theatres or to art centres, small theatres, bigger theatres, and go on to arenas. That's what was happening. And then the first lockdown came. And so by the time the first lockdown came, I'd got to the theatres of about 1,000 seats. And then we had to reschedule all the gigs that we'd already sold and all the gigs that we were going to do. So now I've come back after this 18-month hiatus, and I've had to go straight in at that level of 1,000 seating and above theatres. And it's kind of strange, really, because the momentum's still building up to doing the arenas in spring. But I've had to jump in with 2 feet. So that means that the development of the material, it's when you're doing a room of 50 people in a pub and you're going, look, I'm just going to try something and you let me know if it's funny. You can't do that with 1,500 people. They've come out for a night out.
Yeah.
So this is still, if you like, work in progress, where I'm changing things every night. But I'm not going on stage with a notepad or anything like that. It's what happens on the night, and hopefully, if it's funny enough, I'll try and remember it.
Wow, it sounds a brilliant process. I just wanted to, and we mentioned lockdown there and Freedom Day, but row back a bit to just ask you what lockdown was like for you and in the family. It was well reported as we went into it. I think you got COVID early doors, so you had that to contend with. But did you find it? Did you find good ways of coping with it? Did you write? And what was it like for you?
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, a lot of people think that if you're a comedian, you went home and you were writing jokes, which you probably do if that's the type of comedian you are. But I don't write jokes anyway, so I basically live my life, hope something funny happens, and then talk about it. And obviously, when everybody was sent home, I was sent home, so nothing funny happened. I just sat at home, and so I didn't write much in the terms of material. It's like everybody, it was strange to do. I've got, boys in the 20s who were questioning whether all this was real and all that stuff, because I think that generation has the right to question if it's real, and has the right to question whether we should be following the rules, because their life was just getting going. And so to have the skids pulled away from them at that stage was really disruptive. But for me, I live in a nice house in the countryside. It was nowhere near as taxing as other people. I wasn't worried financially and so on. So you can flippantly go, oh, it was a little bit of a break. But I recognise for a lot of other people, it created a strain that I think we are yet to fully see. The benefit for me was that I was then able to go and do Doctor Who, which was something that I had discussed and I was hoping to do, but I couldn't do because I was on tour. When the tour was suspended, I got back in touch with the team at Doctor Who and asked if I could audition for the job, which I did.
And how was that? I mean, I know people have been aware the production in a lot of cases have been able to carry on. So that is a good thing. But was there a particular regime wrapped around Doctor Who to make it kind of COVID safe? I think it might be interesting for people to know how that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like what happened is everyone off camera wore masks all the time. Everybody, this feels odd, by the way, because I'm doing this on an iPad. So your face is there, my face is there, but the camera's there. So I keep trying to look at the camera, which somehow makes me feel like I'm ignoring you, but it's probably better for the people watching. Anyway, what happened is everyone off camera, so that's a lot of people. There might be 75 people behind the camera at any one point doing different jobs. Wore mask all the time. Everyone on camera were able not to wear masks, obviously, because we were on, speaking and so on and acting, and everybody was in their own individual bubbles, as it were. So we were being PCR tested constantly. We were having tests at home if we weren't on the set. So 2 days a week we were having those done. So the protocols were quite rigid, and also a lot of it, I'd say 90% of it, was filmed in Wales. So you're going home to England for the weekend where there was one set of rules, and then going back to Wales in the week where there was another set of rules, and then trying to remember what jurisdiction you were in was a little bit difficult, because I think England opened up being able to go to the bar earlier than Wales. So people who were working in Cardiff were just driving over to Bristol for a night out and then going back. But for me, that meant that one aspect of being on a long running production like that, where you spend nearly a year, in terms of the social side of things, I wasn't able to do for the first 6 months or anything. We weren't really able to mix outside of being on set. And that, I think that perhaps took away some of the fun that would have been there. But within the restrictions that we were operating, I wouldn't have swapped it for the world. It was a brilliant experience and unbelievable people to work with.
It strikes me that probably a lot of people watching this will be Doctor Who fans. Is there any little insight you can give? I mean, what character do you play or anything?
When will people see this? And what makes you think that people who are watching this are Doctor Who fans?
Well, because Doctor Who fans are everywhere, aren't they, really? One of the most popular shows in the history of the BBC. People will be watching this show in a couple of weeks' time.
All right, okay.
Well before
So
Doctor Who's come out.
Because the first episode goes out on Halloween. And when the first episode does go out and people see it, they'll see a character that's a new character called Carvanista. And Carvanista was a 6'4" alien from another planet. You know, he is an alien. He has got a spaceship and he does kidnap me. The only issue is that he looks like a dog. So he looks like, I think it's a King Charles Spaniel. He looks like, so he looks like a dog. So I then spend my time traveling through space with the dog.
You like dogs, don't you? So that's good.
Yeah. So it gives a strange dynamic to things, but there's so many new elements that have come in and so many new storylines in terms of aliens, because this series is a series where they've called them chapters. There's 6 chapters that fill the series, so it's one story all the way through, and the narrative involves some old monsters from the past, like the Sontarans and so on, the Weeper Angels, and then new ones like this Carvanista. So for the Doctor Who fans, I'm hoping that they'll take to the series, because every other series has been individual stories, and I hope they take to this narrative going throughout, because they've thrown everything at it. Wow. The amount of, particularly under the restrictions that we were under, the amount of people that they've got in it, the amount of special effects that they've got. I'm looking forward to it myself, because you've got to remember, we do our bit. You know, you film the scene that you film and you're in that, but you don't see all the other bits in the script that you're not involved in. You don't see them get filmed, and you don't see how it all hangs together, and then you don't see the post-production, which is one of the biggest things in a sci-fi show like this. So I'm going to be on the couch like everybody else when it first goes out.
Brilliant. I mean, I guess it must feel like a bit of an honor or a privilege to be in Doctor Who, because it is such a kind of amazing institution, isn't it?
Look, it's something. Someone said to me the other day that for a generation of people, you will now be forever Dan from Doctor Who, because that's my character's name, Dan, and I guess that's true. That's what I'm going to be. And you know what? Having a legacy of any sort in life isn't a bad thing. But to have this as a legacy, I'll slash the hand up.
And plus, if the comedy ever goes bad, you can always do Doctor Who conventions for the rest of your life now.
Yeah, thanks for the vote of confidence, Kev. Never stop being funny. But it's true, because you know that's the other thing as well. When you're asking me about Discovery before, I suppose without trying to sound or self-absorbed, I did discover that I was funny again, going back on stage. I discovered that I could do stand-up and I could make strangers laugh, because I've been at home with my wife for 18 months. I haven't been making her laugh. You know what I mean? I've hardly been telling any jokes. So, yeah. Hopefully the comedy will run on a little bit longer.
I was going to ask you, because you've been talking about this great project, which I know a little bit about, but it's called Say Hello, Give It a Go. And I know it's something that you've started to do in conjunction with the gigs this time. And I wondered if you could tell viewers something about it.
Well, the project came from a friend of mine called Joe Diamond, who I met when I was cycling. I was riding a bicycle back from Australia to England, from Sydney to Liverpool in 1992. And I met him in a youth hostel in Istanbul. And when I met him, he was big beard, American, riding a bike. He'd been living on his bike for about 7 years. He lives a kind of an alternative, sustainable lifestyle in France. And he's a really cool guy. And he was coming to see me a couple of years ago at the London Palladium. And he's walking through London. And as he's walking through London, he noticed nobody. He didn't have a smartphone, so he wasn't following a map to get there. So he was trying to ask people for directions. And he noticed nobody was looking up. Everybody was looking at the phone. And so he came up with this idea of encouraging people to break the ice, because everyone he spoke to, because he's from Brooklyn in New York, they went, oh, you're from America, what are you doing here? And he's saying, I'm going to the gig, blah, blah. So he said, as soon as you break the ice, people will talk to you. So he started a campaign called Give It a Go, which was Give It a Go, Say Hello. And they were doing it in Weymouth when he was living there for a bit. It was basically people could get a badge, and when they stood at bus stops or whatever, this badge indicates that you're open to a conversation with people. When we had the lockdown, I just felt that isolation was something that was enhanced in a lot of people's lives. People were made more isolated. So people who were lonely anyway were made even more lonely. And loneliness is the heaviest weight in the world, I think, because it's the easiest thing to solve. You know, if you want someone to stop being lonely, you just speak to them, and they're immediately less lonely than they were before you spoke to them. It's such an easy fix. And I did a couple of Zoom gigs, and I noticed a few people watching on their own. I thought, would they come to a gig? Is a gig environment a welcoming environment? And so we spoke, me and you spoke with a few other agencies about doing the campaign. We decided to change the name from Give It a Go to Say Hello, so that the badge on it says Say Hello. And I've got a badge here. There's one of the badges, if you see. It says Say Hello. So at my gigs now, and we only started last week, we have a few volunteers from an agency called Shout, who work within the field of allowing people to communicate via text in the same way they would with the Samaritans on a phone. We have them as volunteers. We have the agency staff also helping out. And it's basically, we have buckets with these badges in. And if people are open to a conversation with someone else, they wear a badge. And I say it from the front of the stage and say, look, we've got these badges. This is what it is. The idea is that you are all in this room tonight. You all have something in common with everyone else in this room because you chose to be here. So tonight, maybe just say hello to someone you don't know. And it's amazing. The uptake is amazing. We've had to order another 10,000 badges, which arrived on Friday. We only started on Monday. So we've got another 10,000 badges that will carry us through for the next couple of weeks. And it's dead simple. And I don't know how we'll quantify it. I don't know how we'll judge it as a success beyond what's happening in the room. But the ideal scenario for me is that venues or promoters or artists take it on so that people know that an event is a say hello event. So you can go on your own and you'll be welcomed. You can go in a group and you don't have to just be stuck with that group. You can wear a badge and you can talk to other people. And in the interval, you can get off your phone and you can get your eyes up and you can just look someone in the face and go, hello. And that's all.
It looks so brilliant that it seems to be playing out so well, because in the early conversations, we weren't quite sure, whether there would be an uptake if people would be too impressed. So well done on that first week.
Oh, it's been amazing, Kevin, and thank you for the support that you've given and the advice that we've had. And we were doing it on my tour as a as a pilot, really. If the first week is anything to go by, there's a real appetite for it. We need to move through. I said what we'll do is we'll do a full month of it, and then we'll kind of audit where we stand at the end of that month. And then I've got something to go to other artists with and say, what do you think? And, you know, if we get a couple of big names doing this, then it just becomes the norm. And the good thing about it is, a badge is a very easy thing to put on, but it's also a very easy thing to take off. Yeah. And so people can, you know, they can take it off, go home, and then the next gig that they go to, they might find it in the coat pocket again and then stick it back on and go, okay, I will personally make this gig a say hello gig. It may well be that they'll be on the bus or the tube or something the next day, or the train, and they're wearing a badge and someone else is wearing a badge, and you find that they both went to different events and they just spoke to each other. It's trying to just bring us all together. No one has to give up any data. It's not a dating agency. It's not more than just that. You know what it is? I remember when I was first married, and you know, I got married when I was 26, and, you know, young man, going to B&Q, and this was like in the 80s, where men went to B&Q who to be like, it was a male bonding place, B&Q. And what would happen is you'd walk down one aisle of B&Q and you're a DIY man, and there'd be another man at the other aisle of B&Q and he's walking out, and both of you know you're not tradesmen. Both of you know that you're buying tools and equipment and materials, and neither of you know what you're doing really with it. But there was a little bond, and every man who passed another man in B&Q just all went, all right. And that was it. And that's all we want. Now when you go to B&Q, people are on the phone, they don't see, and you just want that. All right, mate, that's it. Because that all right, mate, all of a sudden takes away so much anxiety from people that they don't belong and they don't fit. Just one person saying hello.
Well, if I was the CEO of B&Q watching this, I'd have buckets of your badges in the entrance to the store where they say hello, walking around B&Q. I was going to just move on to something else for a minute, because the COP26 meeting is just finished, and it was billed as the last chance to save the planet, which most COPs kind of are, like Paris and Kyoto. But I was just wondering about your own observations on, if you like, you say you live in the country, which you feel is a lucky thing, but about the environment and the world, and, you know.
Oh, look, well, there's a few things. I think number one, if you're gonna hold a conference about global warming, I don't know whether I would do it in Glasgow in November, because it's cold enough. You know what I mean? All the delegates are going to come out and go, why are we so hot? But having said that, it's now spring up in Glasgow, so I don't know. I think there's a little bit of me that feels there's a lot of rhetoric, and the rhetoric from the leaders we all hear all the time. You know, there's an absence of China. There's an absence of, I'm not sure, you know, by the time this goes out, we'll know, but, you know, the Russian delegates, whether they've gone or committed or not gone. There's so much that we're all waiting governments to do, whereas I believe there's a lot that we can do ourselves. And I've got a heat pump in my house, a ground source heat pump, so and then I buy my electricity from a guaranteed renewable energy source. So my house, as it were, has a zero carbon footprint, you know, but we did our house up, and so when doing the house up, I could put a heat pump in. It's not as easy just to say, go and get a heat pump. It's not as easy to say to people who haven't perhaps got the financial means to say, well, go and get, you know, triple glazing on your windows to keep the heat in. But there are things we can do. We can all consume less. We can consume ethically. If you're going to buy clothing and you go to a shop and it's fast fashion, so you can buy a pair of jeans for £6. If you just stop for a second and think, how on earth is that possible for those jeans to cost that, for this item of clothing to have been made, to have been shipped there, to then be put into a shop so the shop can make a profit, the tax on the profit, the VAT, all of those things are all contained within that £6. Somebody somewhere is hurting for that to happen. Whether it's the sweatshops that are making it, or the environmental cost of using cheap, unsustainable fabrics and so on. So I think we can all think about what we buy and what we consume. Clothing being one of the things. I've tried to cut down the amount of clothing that I buy, and just keep wearing clothes for longer. The other thing, which is the thing that is the one thing everyone can do immediately, is eat less meat. Like just everybody can eat. Like, I've not eaten meat now for 36 years. So I didn't do it because I understood it had the impact that it has on the environment. But it's not hard. I didn't grow up in a hippie commune where 36 years ago we were all trying to not eat meat. I basically I was running a hamburger shop in the Channel Islands, and I walked into the wrong room at the wrong time when I was going to get the meat off the farm. I saw something that made me go, I never, ever want to see that level of suffering again. So I'm not going to eat meat. That was my motivation for it. But now everybody knows that meat production is a huge contributor to the greenhouse gas effect. So you can stop that, because you can stop eating meat. If you have a ham sandwich, a whole animal died. Do you know what I mean? It's for that slice of meat, a whole animal died. I'm not I'm not sort of saying to everybody you've got to change their life. I'm not a perfect example. I've got leather shoes. I've got things that I think can be better. It's a journey. We can all make steps in the journey. But if you just don't make meat something that you have to have every day, cut it down, make it something that it once was, which was a special treat. And that will change the way agriculture is, and that will have an immediate effect on global warming in a way that we can control, because we can't make the governments have more wind farms. We can't make electric cars come quicker. We can't change the airline industry. We can all take a fewer holidays, but we're not really going to reduce travel of other people within our control. But the one thing that we can do is what goes on our plate. And I think that message is the one thing that I would say to everybody. What you decide 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day is what you eat. And you can make a decision 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day to eat something that has less of an impact on the environment.
Well, look, that's brilliantly clear. Let's hope COP was a good one for all of us. We touched then on animals in a different context, but I know you yourself and Melanie, you love your animals and you keep animals at home. And I just wonder what they give you, what the relationship is with the animals you look after and who you've got.
We've got we've got, first of all, we've got dogs. We start off with dogs. We've got 3 dogs. We've just got a new rescue puppy. All our dogs are rescues, and because we've always had rescue dogs, we've never really had a puppy, because rescue dogs are by nature always a little bit older. And but we've just got this from this bull terrier rescue site. They had a French bulldog. It's not a puppy. It's all 9 months old, 10 months old. But it's the first puppy we've ever had in the house. It's chaos. He's all over the place. He hasn't got a tail, which is odd, because then I can't tell what mood he's in. So sometimes I walk into, it's like having another wife. I walk into the kitchen and I go, I don't know, someone's going to bite me in a minute. So there's a great dynamic. And I've always said, and I've said this a few times, that get a dog. Honest to God, everybody needs somebody who's pleased that you've come home. Do you know what I mean? That joy, you've just got another puppy yourself, haven't you? And it's so it's joyful for that. And then we've got five pigs, and again they're all rescued pigs. One of them's called Lucky because 3 times she was meant to go to the abattoir, and for different reasons 3 times she got off the truck. So she's ended up living with us. And then we've got 5 rescued pigs, ducks, chickens, and horses. So we've got horses from the World Horse Welfare, and then we've got 1 horse called Dolly, which is the one of all the animals, is the one that we actually bought off someone. And the reason that we did that is because she's big, because a lot of the rescue horses and welfare horses by default are the horses people don't want. So people want big horses because more people can ride them. So we've got smaller ones, but all the smaller horses are not big enough for me to ride. So I'm learning to ride her. And the joy that animals give you is that they don't question your motives. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like an animal just looks at it and goes, "Okay, today's a fresh day. I will trust that you will do the best for me today." That's the joy of them, I think. And there's a balance, when they're around you. There's just, I don't know. I couldn't imagine a life. I can't understand people who don't have an affinity with animals, because they reflect you. And if you just put something out to an animal, that's what you'll get back. If you love an animal, it'll just love you back.
Yeah.
I say that. Apart from alpacas, we had some alpacas. I did my best with them, but they didn't. Not a lot of love coming back off alpacas. Fair amount of spit, I'll tell you that.
Well, I completely agree on the puppy front. This little one we've got, you come home and she goes nuts. It's just incredible that there's somebody going, "Oh, you're back. I knew you'd come back. I'm really glad to see you. Come on."
Yeah, but I'm glad to see you. I know, and it's that kind of joy in anything. You take that bouncing bundle of joy out, and what you're left with is silence. And you'd rather have the bouncing joy, wouldn't you?
And going back to your point earlier, of course, we share this planet with the animals on it. That's something I think we as human beings can sometimes overlook in a way, and not.
Yeah.
We cohabit.
Yeah, we cohabit, and we whatever chain of events has put us at the top of the food chain, and we weren't always there. And we are. It brings with it a fair amount of responsibility.
And we're coming to the end of this, but I just wonder, what if you look a year ahead? I mean, what would your hopes be for the next year? What would you hope that to be discovering, or that we all discover together?
Well, what I hope is that we the shock that we've all had with regard to COVID and the lockdowns and the pandemic, I hope that we accept that we've got to learn to live with this now, and we move forward. Lockdowns and restrictions really hurt people. Everything from those people who require lip reading to all of a sudden not being able to do it because masks become compulsory. Social distances means that we're not. I'm still at the stage now, I'm sure you are, when you meet people, you don't know whether you can shake their hands, whether you can hug them, whether you hit them with an elbow, or fist bump, you just don't know. And I think human beings need to discover out that again, need to discover how to be with each other again. I think that's important. And maybe we can discover the sense that we are all part of one greater world. There's no point in something like this when there's a pandemic going on, a global pandemic, that we're an island of vaccinated, privileged people, and we've closed our borders, and we don't have any interaction with anyone else because we don't want to share our vaccines with them. The thing is that we now know, you can't have a greater example of the interconnectivity of the world than something like a global pandemic, where new strains, new strands of any virus are allowed to incubate because we didn't send the vaccines over. Let's share the vaccines. Let's share the hope of being able to move forward. And if you link that with COP, let's share a vision where we take responsibility for the world, and we, the privileged, have to reduce our consumption, have to reduce what we believe we need by 10, 20, 40, 50, 60%. We all did that. We're still going to be living a life that's better than most of the people on the planet. And I think we've got the capacity.
Great. Well, look, John, thanks a lot. That's been fantastic. And we're going to wrap it up.
It feels a little bit like a sermon on the mount, this.
Yeah.
It's I'm saying to people, let's see if we can all scale back and stop consuming. And then I look at you. You do look like you're in a corner shop. Like you've got everything.
What can I interest you in? Yeah.
It's the Kevin Cahill bric-a-brac shop.
On that bombshell, we call it a wrap.